Hello, everybody. I'm Marian Waldman with Teach My Kid to Read, and I'm here today with Linda Terry and her son, Alex, and we're going to talk about the Hornet Literacy Primer and the Word Wasp, how to get started and to go through just the first couple of pages or even the first couple of columns, because really that's when it's the most confusing. I think getting started is the hardest. So we'll start with the first step, going to the website and deciding which of these two books to use. They look very much alike. There's the Hornet Literacy Primer and the Word Wasp. And these are two inexpensive but highly effective books. And really, that's one of the reasons that they're so wonderful and that anybody can work with a child and help them learn to read using these books. So you go to the website, and is there any tips or anything that parents or whoever is working with a child, volunteers, is there anything they should know about that test on the website, the www.wordwasp.com?
When they pull up the suitability test, they're going to have different groupings of skills, and for the most part, those skills are looking for what the sound is, not the letter name. It's going to be a, b, k, d. It's not going to be A, B, C, D. You want the sound. And then as the student is writing the sound, you're going to annotate whether or not they're hearing it correct, whether they're translating it correct. You want to keep track, because at the end you have to count the different skills that they have so that you know if you're going to start in the Hornet or if you're going to go straight to the Wasp.
And I saw that, and I'm one of those people who sometimes gets lost in details too. And so you print it out and you read off or do you show them the letters to read the sound, or I can't recall, or are they?
No, you just give them a piece of notebook paper, and that's all that the kid needs, a pencil and a notebook.
So you just show them, and they'll see the letter A, and you say the sound, they'll say a, and that's it. And they write the letter A.
You tell them something along the lines of, I'm going to say some sounds and I want you to write the letter that goes with it. And so
Got it.
If it was A, B, C, D, you would say ah, and then you would have the child write the letter that they think represents ah.
Perfect. Okay. So, I mean, I looked at it. It looked very self-explanatory, although I agree with you. I thought, oh my gosh, then you have to count all this up, but that's an assessment.
I cheated and I made it into a checklist. I don't have my copy of that at the moment, but I just have a simple dry erase marker, and I just mark who's where and track it from that.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I saw they give you a cutoff that if you score X amount, it's Word Wasp, or you score X amount, it's the Hornet Literacy Primer. So I'm much more familiar with the Hornet Literacy Primer. And so do you find that more parents or more kids that you worked with, you start off with the Hornet Literacy Primer?
Most of them do start in the Hornet. There are some serious foundational skills that a lot of them are lacking. So even if they score high enough to land in Wasp, there might be a section that's covered more in depth in the Hornet. And you can just find that section and do that, or you can just super quick go through the Hornet.
Well, that's interesting. Well, you know these books so well, so you probably have a manual in you of how to troubleshoot these scenarios. So So now and we'll pretend that Alex is 12, but we'll pretend Alex is a little bit younger and he's just starting out in the Hornet Literacy Primer. And I'm gonna hold up the best I can the first pages. It has the directions on the different symbols of the colored letters, but I thought that it would be helpful if you worked with Alex on the first page and just explained what you're doing, what the significance of the colors are, how to record the dates, because these are those details.
Okay. So the day goes on top, the month goes on the bottom. I'm weird. I write the year because sometimes you have to come back to things.
Yes.
Just depends on how well it sticks. And then you can keep track of how well it sticks if you have to go back or not, if you include the year just on the top of the page.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one is, so it has the green letters, which are our vowel sounds. They're not the vowel names. They're just the sounds.
Sounds.
Right. So that sort of thing. Right. Good. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And then the black letters are the consonants. Real quick. Yeah. It's just a read it for me. Ready, set, let it rip, tater chip.
R, Y, N, Ch, K, G, K, W, Sh, Y.
There's two sounds for S. What are the two sounds of S? What is the sound? That one.
Z.
Z. Okay, so we got two sounds. Give them to me quick.
S and Z.
Thank you. Okay, keep going.
Ch, K, Sh, D, L.
And some kids have a lot of trouble hitting that throat sound for the v and the.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Feels like I got a bee stuck in my mouth every time I do that.
You're right. It does. It is kind of like a bee. Okay.
And so you're just making little check marks as
checking it off as he goes. If the S where he struggled to remember that there's two separate sounds, he got part of it right, but then he had to be reminded on what's happening. So I just put a little check and then a tiny mark in the corner of that same box,
Mom,
to remind me to go back and check it.
Keep in mind, we haven't done this in
I know we haven't done it in over a year, but those bits, parts, and pieces should stay in your long-term memory because we've done this.
Should, that's the big word, should.
So you and Alex Alex just motored through all of these columns. So if you were working with him now, starting from the beginning, how far would you go with this? Would you then go on to the next one?
So long as he got all the information correct or mostly correct, I would just continue as far as a 20-minute timer would allow, unless he started really struggling. Like I have another student's book here. Like he didn't know the vowel sounds at all on that first page, the very first time that we did it. So what I did was stopped his timer and we got out our bananagrams, the vowel tiles from the bananagrams. And we sat there for the rest of the 20 minutes and went through touching them and saying the sounds, moving them, mixing them up. And when he came back the next 2 days, he had them down, didn't miss a single one. But because he couldn't get through the vowels, I didn't think it was fair to take him into where vowels become necessary, which is what, the third lesson? I think 1, 2, yeah, it's the third lesson and they have to distinguish the vowel sounds.
Yeah.
Which I'm good at.
I
Yeah.
see that. And so I know that they say too, that that you should go on after you can have up to, was it two tries, or after you've had 2 consecutive?
It says 2 consecutive, but I tend to go for 3 minimum.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll make them do 4 if it was something that they had a really hard time with.
Mhm. So you keep going, and then you keep going so that you're not, like, once you go through these exercises, if they're really not getting them, you troubleshoot and you introduce some fun ways of just kind of taking a breath and getting your arms around, let's say, the vowel sounds. But if somebody was getting it, or maybe was just missing some sounds here and there, you would still continue on, and then it would be the next time that you would go back and try again, instead of continuing with this same lesson and
Yes,
being frustrated.
we do not like frustration. I don't like to be frustrated.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that kids don't like to be frustrated any more than adults do. I think their tolerance might be a little lower. Anything that you can find that gets it out of the book, but they're still getting the information that they need, is super great. And I think kind of helpful.
That's a boat.
Well, I think just seeing you go through and sometimes getting this basic information about how to, just how to do it, whether Alex has to read the sounds, or in some, in some cases they're pronouncing the sounds. There's a lot, then they're spelling the sounds. There's a lot of different activities going on too. I mean, they don't differentiate. They really do the encoding and decoding together, which is so important. So it's not these discrete activities afterwards. It's all together. What's the next part that somebody might start to get confused with?
So again, it jumps right into, from the reading the sound to the coach, to now the coach is reading to the student, but the student has to write. So it goes from decoding straight to encoding. And like I said, what is it? The third lesson? Yeah, the third lesson. They have to be able to differentiate those vowel sounds as they're being spoken to them. And what is it? The first one, they have to get 2 sounds right to earn a check for 1 box. And a lot of people think that it's 1 check per item that's being read. So
nope, it's 2.
Like the first set would be S, and they have to identify and write the vowel sound. And if he got them both correct, I would put 1 check in 1 box. But because the boxes are split, I don't know how well I can make that show up.
Yeah, I have it right in front of me. Yeah.
So because the boxes are split, a lot of people think that S is 1 check and is a separate check, but it has to go together. They have to do both of them for it to be right. And you're not supposed to let them see the book, which is why you're supposed to sit on the corner of the table, so there's a little bit of space, but we're not doing that right now.
And it sounds like once you get into it, it seems like it becomes a lot more intuitive. Would you say?
It is a little bit intuitive, but if it's not intuitive, the instructions, especially in the newer American version, is so much easier to understand and make it more intuitive. Usually by the time you get through the first column is when it starts to make sense on what those directions are telling you. if it doesn't immediately make sense.
What other tips or tools would you have for getting started and continuing on and sticking with this? Because we know it's effective. We know it's a great option.
You need a notebook.
Mhm.
For them, ours actually has the Hornet written on there, so I know which book it goes with. He needs a pencil. I need a pencil. You need the book. Some letter tiles or something are helpful on occasion,
Mhm.
but it's not 100% necessary. A sense of humor is what gets you through the books, because you can't do it if you're not laughing. If you're sitting there and you're like, and the kid is sitting there like, makes a sad face. I can't. Then you're not going to get through them. You're going to get maybe 10 lessons in and be like, this is dumb. I don't want to do it. It doesn't make any sense. It's so boring. And it's really not, because there's an opportunity to laugh on almost every page. So
I'm glad that you did bring that up, because obviously it sounds like you and Alex have some good times going through the Hornet Literacy Primer. No?
we do. The first little bit where they start reading connected sentences is kind of funny because it's a tongue twister.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really good opportunity to giggle at that one. And then wherever the Hulk sentence is, that one is hilarious. And if you have any kind of an accent, getting through the word Hulk is a great opportunity to giggle.
I think you've given us some great information to get started. This is a really good first step. And so thank you.